I kind of put more importance on being more aggressive and taking control of the court, and I was it was working. So
Hey, tennis fans, I'm Ben Lewis,
And I'm Mike McIntyre.
and you're listening to Matchpoint Canada. Hey, tennis fans, you are listening to Matchpoint Canada as we return for another episode, and so much Canadian tennis news happening. Denis Shapovalov winning the biggest title of his career at the Dallas Open. Vicky Mboko, our guest this week. Mike, you had a chance to speak with her as she's having an unbelievable start to 2025.
And Vicky Mboko, where have you been? Because it feels like she's been a little bit off of our radar the last couple of years, but as she'll discuss with me shortly, injuries, something that's been a bit of a problem for her, finally feeling healthy, and you can tell because a 17-0 start to the season is pretty incredible stuff, including a 75K ITF title where she went all the way through qualies, straight through to the final, and hoisted the title without dropping a set. So she's playing some incredible tennis, a name that you and I were really high on a couple summers ago when we saw her play qualies here at the National Bank Open in Toronto, and then kind of faded from visibility, at least in terms of playing North American tournaments. She'll get into why she kind of dropped off the radar in North America, played some more European clay court tournaments, but she's back. She's playing great tennis. She's nearing the top 200 in the world, and at only 18 years old, I think gives us a really interesting option in terms of the depth of Canadian tennis on the women's side of things.
Yeah, another incredible young prospect, as you said, just 18 years old, closing in on the top 200. We'll get to, obviously, the Denis Shapovalov conversation, which will be a big part of this episode, but let's listen in to your conversation with Victoria Mboko.
Really happy now to be joined by a rising star in Canadian tennis, Vicky Mboko. She is in Burlington right now. For those of you in the GTA, you'll know what I'm talking about, but a suburb sort of outside of Toronto. She's just set a career high ranking of number 215 on the WTA Tour, and someone we haven't spoken to in a while on Matchpoint Canada, but we're going to change that, and it starts today. Vicky, thank you for taking the time to be with us.
yeah, thank you for having me. It's nice to be back.
I was looking at the last time we had you on the program. You spoke with my co-host Ben, who couldn't be here tonight, and it was a joint interview with you and Kayla Cross right after you had made finals of the Junior Aussie Open doubles draw, I believe, in 2022. Yes. So a whole lot has happened since that time.
A lot has happened, yeah.
And so we got lots to catch up on, but I mean, the season's starting out pretty amazing. You're 17-0 right now to start the season, undefeated. What the heck? I mean, my first question is, what the heck did you do in your off-season training that is clearly clicking so well for you right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I came back to the center in Montreal. I was training there with the coaches that I'm very familiar with, like all the fitness coaches, tennis coaches. So I mean, I think we were working pretty hard with like my on-court fitness, and like I was sitting with a lot of guys. So I think that kind of helped me a little bit. When you hit with guys and you play with girls, of course, like there's a little bit of a level difference. So I think I was feeling pretty confident going into the tournaments in the Caribbean, and I felt pretty loose. I was pretty confident with my game, and yeah.
I'm guessing this has kind of exceeded your best case scenario, though, or when you go out there, are you thinking, yeah, I'm going to start the year and I'm just going to go on a win streak and nobody can stop me?
No, I don't think that way, honestly. I mean, I literally like to go day by day because you never know. Honestly, if I asked myself, or if I told myself before all this happened that you're gonna win 3 tournaments in a row, like I would have been like, what are you talking about? But I mean, yeah, no, I've just been going day by day, giving it my all, and I've been working on a lot of things with my coaches, things I need to improve on, things I've been improving while playing matches. So I mean, I'm happy that I'm making progress while doing well. So it's a nice feeling.
I'll bet. Well, congratulations. It's been fantastic
Thank you.
to see. And I guess the hardware is piling up. Did you have to bring those 3 trophies home in your carry-on, or like where did you?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, after the first 2 weeks in the Caribbean, I had a week off and I was in Montreal So I met up with my dad there in a condo, and he brought all my trophies home. They didn't fit in his suitcase, and he was very careful with them. So I think he just brought them on the plane with him, just to give, because it was just like stack on stack. So yeah, I just let him deal with it, and they're home now. So yeah.
I'd love to see the reaction on the security person's face at the airport, seeing that come through like the screener with all these trophies, you know, in the bag.
Yeah, no, it was funny, but yeah, it's nice.
Thank you guys so much for watching us at Matchpoint Canada. If you like our work, follow along, hit the subscribe button below.
Your most recent one was at a 75K in Rome, and when I say that, it sounds very like, you know, European and whatnot, but that was Rome,
I know,
Georgia.
no, Rome, Georgia.
Yeah, in the United States. Never been there.
Yeah.
So you went right through qualies and then the entire draw, including the title match, without dropping a set. Pretty impressive stuff. What is it specifically with your game right now that's really translating from what you're working on in practice to clearly having these results on the court?
Yeah, so well, I feel like when I started the year playing my first couple of matches, like things were kind of shaky a little bit. I'm not gonna say I just started off perfectly, like on the money, like going for everything. I had some things that needed to be improved on. Like I think throughout playing, I improved as well. I think I've started to become a lot more aggressive, I guess. It was a translation from outdoor to indoor. So I feel like the play went a lot faster indoor. Things were not as many rallies. So I kind of put more importance on being more aggressive and taking control of the court. And I was, it was working. So I wanted to stay really focused. I wanted to be very active with moving with my footwork on court. And I think my serve has helped me a lot get out of sticky situations during the matches where I was just able to hold my serve a lot, especially in girls tennis. It's really crucial to hold serve because it's pretty easy to break as well with girls. So I think that's helped me a lot.
Well, if you see my serve, it's pretty easy to break with some guys too. So I'm never one to boast about my serve, but I love listening to people who can. I'm a little jealous, I'm not going to lie. I got to say, when I last saw you live, and it's been a while now, but it was summer of 2022 here in Toronto. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong because my memory's a little, off. But you went into qualies, main draw qualies of the National Bank Open, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I was in the qualies.
And I was just so impressed. I think it was a match out on the grandstand court, and your serve was just really clicking. And me and Ben Lewis, my co-host, were both just like, wow, this is something else. And at the time, you would have been like 16 years old, maybe, I want to say.
I was 15 turning 16,
later that month, right?
Yeah.
And we were both just so impressed. And, I mean, maybe let's start there. That National Bank Open that year, how big of a confidence boost was that for you at that age to see that you could trouble some players that had, certainly far more experience than you at the time?
Yeah, so I was a 3-setter match. I mean, obviously there is a lot of things I could have improved on in that match, but to be honest, like I didn't think I was gonna be that close to being able to win the match. Only because like whenever I'm used to watching like women on TV, and I always just think like, oh, they're like on a whole different level than us. Like they're grown, they're like women, they know so much more. So I guess like when I was playing and I knew I was able to stay with the girl, I kind of surprised myself, and I'm like, oh, like it's really not that far of a difference like between being a junior and a woman, because it's honestly, tennis is very physical, I mean, I think I was really young at the time, so there was a lot of flaws in my game, but looking back at it, it's really not as big of a difference as I thought. So yeah.
I remember at the end of the tournament, I was speaking with Carl Hale, tournament director here in Toronto, and just kind of recapping the Canadian performances and what his takeaways were from the tournament. And he said, mark my words, keep an eye on Vicky Mboko because she's going to do something. And that really stuck with me, and it must be nice to hear that, I'm sure, from you as well.
Yeah, it's nice to hear
Have
it.
it come from someone like that. Um,
Yeah.
After that event, I don't want to say you kind of, disappeared from the radar, but I think purposefully, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, started playing a little bit more over in Europe, a little bit
Yeah.
less maybe here in Canada. We didn't, get a chance to see you as much. Take us through what the sort of the plan was, and how things unfolded for you after that tournament in 2022, to sort of fill in the gaps between then and now.
So I've been struggling with a lot of injuries. I had many knee issues, and it's been reoccurring, and it's obviously been slowing down being able to play tournaments, be able to play. I was more focused on like recovery. I had a tear in my tendon, and sometimes it would kind of open up a bit, sometimes it would heal. So it was like kind of, I had to try to balance playing a bit more, but also listening to my body and taking rest. So it was kind of a bit of ping pong between like my injuries and playing matches. So I think I kind of started pretty slow a little bit. I was more on the clay, which I'm not as used to because I grew up playing indoor hard court. So I was a bit out of my comfort zone, playing more on clay court. I was playing mostly in Europe. I was training in Europe, so
And was playing on the
everything was
clay, sorry, like purposefully to avoid the impact of the hard
yes.
court?
Yeah, so yeah, it was just for like it was a lot more better for like not as much impact on the hard court, and mainly for my knee. I think I could have done a lot better, of course, but I think now I feel very healthy. I don't have any knee issues, so that's one of the biggest positives, honestly, like that feel even greater than all my titles. I didn't feel any pain, so while
That's
playing on
awesome.
hard. So I think out of that, being healthy is my number one priority at this point regarding the history I've had with injuries. So from now on I'm confident. I feel great body wise. So yeah.
That's so great to hear. And it must be
Yeah.
difficult when you're young, like 16, 17, just kind of starting out with your
Yeah.
aspirations to be a pro.
Yeah.
And you've already got to sort of balance, well, how much can I play? What kind of surface? What tournaments? How many tournaments? Because
Yeah.
I know when I was that age, I just wanted to play as much sports as I possibly could. Like you're
Yeah.
eager, right?
Of course. I was super eager. Like I just wanted to play a bunch of matches, get like some rhythm back. But when you're stopping and starting, you have no sense of where you're at. You don't have any rhythm. You don't know where your level's at. So obviously that mentally can be very challenging on yourself as well. But
Right.
I'm glad it's all for now. It's all over. Hopefully it stays that way, and I'm doing everything I can to prevent it from happening again. And yeah, I'm happy right now.
It's great to hear. You're only 18 years old. I feel like you've already been on the scene for so long, or we've been talking about you in Canadian tennis circles for so long. But you're growing up, as a professional tennis player, which is quite different from what most 17, 18-year-olds have to do. What are some of the pros and cons of this life now that you've been sort of through this grind for the past couple of seasons? What are the things that you really enjoy about it, the traveling and the lifestyle? And what are some of the things that are still a bit of an adjustment, maybe?
Yeah, I like really traveling, seeing new places all the time, going to really beautiful countries, with my coaches, with my team. The cons of it, I feel like you're alone a lot. You don't, I think as a junior, I think Tennis Canada did a really good job as we always had our little group of 3, 4 kids, and we were always traveling together at the same tournaments. So when you're in the hotel room, you always had someone to talk to. You're always like entertained, I guess. We're always sharing rooms. So I never felt alone. I always felt like there was always someone there. We go eat dinner together. We go, I don't know, to the beach together, have lunch. So recently it's just been me. So I think it can get kind of lonely at some times, but I've been really grateful because in the States a lot, in North America, we we play a lot of the girls we already know and we're kind of friends with. So it's nice to have some friends at the tournaments that you can like hang out with too. So I think, yeah, that's nice.
Who are you still tight with among the Canadian crew? Who's your sort of inner circle of Canadian players, if you want to give a shout out to any that, you're particularly close with?
I mean, like I've been seeing like Kayla at some tournaments or like, I mean, I haven't seen her as much often, but Marina, whenever we see each other, it's really nice. We always have really fun times, but obviously we all have our own different schedules, so it's really hard to see each other. But I mean, I feel like when we're together, it's nice.
Kayla's playing, I believe, some college tennis now in the States.
I think so.
But the two of you, your paths crossed recently in a singles match, and
Yeah.
I don't want to repeat the score in case she's listening because she's a friend of ours too. But that was quite a clear-cut win for you, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I was kind of zoning a little bit in the match. Like I was very focused on what I had to do. I think it was just one of those days where I felt like everything was working.
Yeah, I guess.
And yeah, it was nice.
Well, look, things seem to be working so well. You're closing in on the top 200 in the game right now. Does that particular number or milestone, like what would that mean to you? Does that resonate with you, or is it just another number and you're looking past that sort of thing?
Honestly, I'm kind of looking past it. I don't really set goals for myself or milestones just because you honestly really never know what's gonna happen. Like it's pretty insane because I was like 350 like not too long ago and I jumped a lot of spots. So I had no idea that in a month it was gonna be like that. And honestly, you never know for the future either. I think I just like to let things flow as they are. Like I just let things happen. You try your best, you know. Everyone wants to be a high ranking. It's normal, but sometimes you're losing, you're dropping, you're going up. Everything happens to everyone. So it's nice when you're going up, of course.
Sounds like a good mantra. I mean, I was looking at your ranking just a few moments before we spoke, and yeah, you're around like 350th at the start of the year, and now 215. That's pretty incredible for a month's work. How does that? I mean, I know you say you're not setting any specific goals or what have you, but how does this ranking jump maybe affect the decisions you'll make for what tournaments you'll play, or what kind of schedule and what the plan, how accelerated your plans are now for this year, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, well, currently, like as I mentioned to you, I talked to you before, like I'm going to Europe to play some 35, 75 Ks. And I mean, I hopefully me and my coaches were talking about it to potentially make Roland Garros the qualifying list this year. I mean, I don't have anything to defend until then so far, but I think like getting a little bit more points and kind of securing that spot would be nice to be in at least top 200 because that's when you kind of know that you've made the qualifying. So it's nice to hear that. I mean, playing my first major would be really cool. So I think that was one of the main adjustments that was possibly made to my schedule.
I mean, I think when you're a kid, all of us as young tennis players and tennis fans, you look at the majors. Those are the ones.
Oh yeah, everyone looks at the
for me, when I was a kid, it was like I blocked everything else out during those 2 weeks, and I just watched tennis as much as I could, especially
Exactly.
Wimbledon and the U.S. Open during your summer vacation. Is there a particular slam among the four that would be extra special for you that you really want to play more than any of the others?
Definitely U.S. Open. Yeah, I mean, I remember playing that as a junior, and I mean, even when I was just a kid, like U.S. Open has always been like my favorite. When we played there as juniors, it was super fun, like super great crowds, just so entertaining. Yeah, that would probably be my favorite slam.
I put Wimbledon up there number one for myself, but
Wimbledon's nice too. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know, US Open just holds a special place in my heart.
One of my goals for 2025, like I still set goals out even in tennis, which is funny because I'm just like a recreational club, hack wannabe. But one of my goals for this year is to play on grass for the first time, and so
Oh, really?
I'm reaching
Okay,
out
yeah.
to a couple of clubs here in Toronto. I'm going to make it happen this year. It's been on my radar for
Yeah,
a
why
while.
not?
Well, how many times have you played on grass before, and what's that been like?
The only time I've played was the Roehampton Junior Tournament and Wimbledon, and honestly, it was super fun. Honestly, it was my first ever time. Like you have on like the sole of your shoe, it's like these like spikes. I don't know. It felt really fun. Like I honestly can't describe it. Just like
Different,
I don't know. It
unique,
feels more like a game more than like tennis. I don't know because the
right?
ball is kind of slow a bit for me, and like yeah, I don't know, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
I'm gonna have to go get the shoes though now. You're making me think like I don't even have the
Oh
shoes
no,
with the
you can get
nubs.
all court shoes too.
Yeah, okay. I'm due
Yeah.
for some new shoes this year, so we'll see if I can get something that will transition to grass as well.
Of
Hey,
course.
outside of tennis, and I know it's maybe hard to think of because you're so like it's all consuming, right? Like it takes up all of your time, even the off season. I mean, like what is the off season in tennis? But when you do get those brief moments away from training, away from the court, what are some of the things that you just like to do for fun? What kind of hobbies or activities are you into?
Honestly, I feel like I'd like to go like shopping a lot. Like me and my sister will just go like get like a tea or a drink and like we'll just like drive around like our city, like go to coffee places, go to the mall, just walk around,
The mall
run
in
a lot of
Burlington,
air.
is that it? Is there a big mall in
Yeah,
Burlington?
I mean not big ones, no.
Yeah.
I go shopping in Toronto.
Okay, of course, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I just like to I mean, when I'm home though, I'm home for very short amounts of time. So I feel like when I'm home, I'm always running my errands of things I need for the next travel.
Right, right.
So I'm
Stocking
always
up.
just like, yeah, stocking up on stuff.
But what are some of the places that you hit up on the road that have been like cities that surprised you with how comfortable you were there, how much you enjoyed it? Any places that kind of surprised you when you visited them for the first time that kind of resonated or stuck with you?
Um, for the first time,
How
um,
about Rome? I mean, Rome, Georgia now has to have a special place because of this big win, I
oh
guess.
yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, Rome, it was like a cute little town, like outside. It was like an hour away from Atlanta. There wasn't much there, but the tennis facility was like insane. In the hotel, they had like a really nice Marriott right up with the tennis club. So I thought it was really nice. Like I don't know if it's a USTA center or something, but yeah, I really enjoyed that week.
You're not tired of the travel yet. You're still at the point where it's kind of fun and exciting.
No, yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Hey, it's February, and so obviously I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, of course, about it being Black History Month and the importance for you, personally, and ensuring that in Canada, we take the time to reflect about the challenges that are faced by those in the Black community, maybe Black athletes as well, and the many accomplishments of them too. How important this month is for you as a Black athlete.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so much there's not many of us, especially in tennis. So, I mean, there's so many people we are able to look up to that I guess like where you face kind of like the same struggles or the same experiences, especially on tour as like an athlete, like it could be difficult sometimes too. So, I think like having a lot of people to look up to, a lot of like people you can relate to. It's nice.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, you're becoming
it's
one of those
important.
people for sure here in our country, and I know young kids are going to look at you and want to pick up a tennis racket. Those inside and outside of the Black community as well. I really hope we see more of you play here. Not this time of year, obviously, as it's like as
Yeah,
you've realized since coming home, freezing cold right now. But
crazy cool.
but in the
But
summertime, when there are those tournaments
yeah,
happening, across the country and certainly here, it'd be great to see more of you. We're excited to see where your career goes next. Is Montreal this summer something that you're kind of looking forward to and hoping it works out with your schedule and your ranking and all that?
Well, of course, like it's always nice to play in Canada in front of the home crowd, and hopefully it becomes a part of my schedule. I mean, I'm not thinking about the summer right now, to be honest, but I would love to play in Montreal, and it would be really nice to play in front of all the fans, the tennis fans, and it would be really cool.
Well, we hope to catch you then. Hopefully we can do an interview in person. And hey, if your ranking keeps going up at the rate it has so far through 2025, I mean, look out, everybody, for Vicky Mboko. So thanks for taking the time. And hey, keep it going. We'd love to see it. And don't stop.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
There it is, Mike's interview with Vicky Mboko. It was funny, actually. An article popped up on my feed a few days ago with the headline, I think it was a Substack piece, who's the hottest player on the women's tour? And they labeled Vicky Mboko. She hasn't lost a single match. Obviously, it's ITF level, but the way she's playing, I mean, to me, she looks ready for WTA events.
I mean, we thought that when we saw her a couple of years ago, and at the time she was only 15. Not even 16 years old when we saw her that summer of 2022. So she had the serve even back then. She was hitting some of the hardest serves that we saw in qualifying, even the main draw tournament. I mean, she had a professional player's serve, and that's only gotten stronger since then. She said to me, and don't we hear this from every player that's on a heater and playing well, but she said that she's being more aggressive, and that's been a target for her this year. And I mean, you hear that from everybody, and isn't that the case in so many sports? It's if we could just flick that switch and play aggressive all the time. I mean, I tell my kids when they're playing hockey, more aggressive, and it's not as simple as that. But when you're confident, it's easier to step into the court, take the ball early, and that's clearly what she's been doing. Great to hear that she's healthy. Again, I mean, we focus on the Canadian players a lot and how many of them have had to deal with injuries over the last few years, pretty much all of them at one time or another. It's the same for any tennis player. It's such a grueling sport. And even when you're 16, 17 years old and you think that you're, immune to that sort of thing, you're not. And as Vicky said, she's learning to trust her body when she needs a break, and hopefully kind of gauging when to play the tournaments, when to take some time to, I don't want to say relax, but to recover anyways. And I think she provides, a really viable option for Canada down the road in terms of Billie Jean King Cup and just the enormous potential that she has as a tennis player on the pro level.
Yeah, it will be fascinating to see where 2025 takes her. I always link Vicky with Kayla Cross, as they did so great in doubles together as juniors, and Kayla Cross, I think, had a phenomenal 2024. She's now gone the college route for 2025. I wonder Mboko may be bypassing college and trying to go pro as soon as possible.
And as I mentioned to Vicky, the two of them played each other en route to Vicky's title in Georgia, and 6-love for Vicky.
Wow. And Kayla's a great player.
So that's a great player. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's incredible what Vicky Mboko is doing. You talked about playing more aggressive. I'm going to use that as our lead into the top Canadian story of this past week. Denis Shapovalov winning the Dallas Open in Texas, an ATP 500, the third title of his career, the biggest title of his career. He beat 3 top 10 players in this tournament, including taking out Casper Ruud in the finals. Just what a phenomenal week of tennis from Denis.
I mean, reminding us all what he's capable of, and I feel like we've been waiting for this breakthrough. Not that he hasn't had breakthroughs before, but this mid-20s, in his mid-20s now breakthrough, that just hasn't happened the last couple of years, and injury's been a part of that. We've talked about his, mental fortitude needing a little bit of work. We've talked about needing maybe some adjustments on his team, which he's clearly put into practice in 2025, bringing in some new voices and just seeming more mature. And it's shocking to me that it's only his third career ATP title. But 2 of them have come within the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And so clearly something is clicking. He's unlocking, what we all knew that he could do and capable of. And he's back into the top 32 in the ATP rankings for the first time since September 2023. So, he's putting himself in a position to be seeded for Roland Garros, to be seeded for Wimbledon if he can, keep this going. And he's got so much room to add to his point totals because of, generally lackluster, inconsistent results in recent years.
Yeah, and look, I know we won't think of Denis Shapovalov as a clay courter, but Indian Wells in Miami around the corner, the way he performed here in Dallas, just so free flowing, aggressive, taking the ball early, that huge left-handed serve. He was on the front foot of all of these matches, and it makes him so incredibly dangerous. And this is the type of tennis he was playing when he made semifinals of Wimbledon, quarterfinals of the U.S. Open, and taking out Taylor Fritz, Tommy Paul, Casper Ruud. These are big time opponents. And actually, he's the first player to take out 3 top teners in a single week since Nick Kyrgios did so back in 2019. So it's been a while since someone has gone on this hot of a run at an ATP 500 event.
And I mean, this is something that we've kind of been waiting for. And I think we've both been kind of surprised that it hasn't happened sooner with all of the talent that he has. Great to see him back almost in the top 30. We got Felix approaching the top 20. It feels like the guys are really clicking again. And, you know, I've got to say their decision to skip Davis Cup, clearly worthwhile. Felix with a recent title, Denis now with the title as well. He took off the Davis Cup to sort of, you know, get back to or feel 100% healthy. And, you know, spoiler alert, but we're going to have Vasek Pospisil on an upcoming episode. And he's spoken to us about the fact that, you know, it makes sense for guys to have to miss Davis Cup from time to time because you got to prioritize. And I think Denis and Felix are at a stage in their career where they absolutely have to do this. They've also won the Davis Cup, so I think that takes off a little bit of the pressure and the onus for them to be there every single season or every single tie. And it's worked for them and shown that you got to put yourself first in this sport because at the core, tennis is an individual, you know, athletic venture.
And especially for those two, where I think we would say, you know, look at both of their rankings, particularly Shapovalov being outside of the top 50, and know his ceiling is so much higher. Both of these guys are former top 10 players. Felix has been as high as world number 6. And yeah, the decision making was correct. Look, Felix took that Davis Cup week off and won his second title of the season in Montpellier. And Denis, you know, he said he was maybe dealing with a little bit of back pain. He rests up, then goes to Dallas and has the biggest week of his career in singles. So talk about correct decisions. And, you know, we'll shift over to Rotterdam. I will say Felix here, he split the opening 2 sets in that first match before retiring due to injury. Said he was dealing with something with the toe. I have a feeling maybe some fatigue carryover from the title this past week, so I'm not so concerned. I was happy to see sort of the resurgence and return of Carlos Alcaraz having a dominant and excellent week, winning the first indoor title of his career.
Yeah, I mean, these are the names that we want to see go deep as tennis fans, and it doesn't always have to be the Canadians, although, of course, we love it when it is. But, you know, as a tennis fan, first and foremost, like guys like Alcaraz are the future of the sport, and they're still young. I mean, how old is Alcaraz? Like 21 years old still?
Yeah, 21 and 17 titles.
Yeah, which is craziness, right? It's absolute craziness. But you're going to see some of that inconsistency from time to time because of the fact that he's still so young and developing his game. And, but, you know, future, you know, current, future, you know, potential legend of the sport here. We're dealing with a talent that's that big, that has the possibility to become one of the all-time greats. And, of course, we want to see those guys going deep in the tournaments. If you're a paying customer going to these tournaments, let's not kid ourselves. These are the players that you want to see in the semifinals and the finals. I remember so many times as a kid watching the National Bank Open in Montreal, and you'd end up with someone random in the finals like Chris Woodruff or Michael Pernfors near the end of his career. And you're like, yeah, this isn't really like scratching the itch for me. You know what I mean? I want to see Edberg and Becker and Agassi and Sampras and Graf and Celis. And so obviously with Alcaraz correcting course, this is what fans want to see. And these are the kind of players, no disrespect to others, but these are the guys who are going to grow the sport, right? The guys, the women, the big time players, the Sabalenkas, the Coco Gauffs, who are going to grow that sport. So yeah, fantastic to see him clicking into high gear as the Sunshine Double is quickly approaching.
Yeah, it's a timely title for Alcaraz, without a doubt, in the first of 2025 for him. Alex de Minaur made the finals of this event. a fantastic week for the Australian. He's now up to a career high ranking of number 6, which is just incredible when you think of what he's accomplished over the past couple of years, 2.5 years or so. And I always think back to that run to the finals in Toronto that he had just a couple of years ago. And it felt like maybe not the very beginning of something great, but at that time he was on the upswing and he simply hasn't stopped.
That tournament was huge for both him and Jannik Sinner. I mean, to different levels. Look at what Sinner's gone on to do since then, winning, more than one Grand Slam, number 1 player in the world and all that. But for de Minaur as well, I feel like you're right. That Toronto tournament was definitely like a huge confidence boost to make his first Masters 1000 final. And he spoke about wanting to prove people wrong. And I mean, whatever motivates you, I never doubted that Alex de Minaur could be a great player, but whatever it is that charges you up and gets you going, and I agree that Toronto was a big stepping stone for him, and it wasn't a one-off. Like, he's proven in the year and a half since then that he absolutely belongs in the top 10 in the sport.
Yeah, we talk about great players who have had great success. One player who I'm just kind of scratching my head at their start to the season, because normally they kick off the year in strong fashion, is Daniil Medvedev. And you look at the Australian Open, disappointing second round exit, losing to young American Lerner Tien in 5 sets. And Medvedev, I think, is a guy we always expect to go deep in Melbourne. He's been in finals there before. And then he makes his way over to Rotterdam, just his second event of the year, and he loses to Italian Mattia Bellucci, who gets his first ever top 10 win against Daniil. I'm sort of wondering, is this a growing trend of something, a greater problem to worry about for Daniil, or is it just a mini slump?
I mean, a couple of things. Medvedev is sort of in that in-between generation, right? Like, he's much older than Alcaraz and Sinner, but younger than the big 3, big 4, who have mostly moved on at this point. And you wonder if he's kind of lost his window, if the young guns are going to come along and just kind of push him out. I have no doubt the guy's still going to make second weeks at slams and be in the contention, but I wonder if it's kind of already sort of transitioned beyond his window. But more than that, I think as I looked into it, I don't think it's that mysterious right now. I mean, he didn't play a lead-up event to the Aussie Open. True. And he did welcome his second child in January. And, I remember when my first child came along, I was kind of running high on adrenaline and everything. And then, I got hit with twins on the second go-around, so maybe that's why I was so tired all the time. But it's a different story when you're then dealing with 2. And, we think of professional athletes, well, they can afford all the childcare and the help and everything. But, hey, maybe the guy just wanted to be around to experience and enjoy those initial few weeks and whatnot with his new child. And maybe he's just, tired, like any new parent is going to be when they welcome a child into the world. So I think perhaps it's just that, and that we'll see him correct course and get back to his, strong play sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and look, he is in that in-between generation with Tsitsipas and Zverev, and look, Medvedev does have his slam, so no one's taking away that one Grand Slam title that he did manage to win at the U.S. Open. We'll move on to women's action, and it's always, I think special for me to see a recent guest of the show have a nice run. And it's happened to us in the past because we've had many great conversations with women's and men's players. And then a part of you, even though we are journalists, sort of root for them. And so seeing Belinda Bencic, who I spoke to at the tail end of 2024, it was our first episode of 2025, seeing her return from giving birth to her first child, starting a family, and winning a huge tournament in Abu Dhabi, the 9th title of her career. I have to say it was really special. Just an unbelievable performance, and it speaks to her talent that she can come back this quickly and have so much success.
Absolutely, and just the resilience and how she did it. I mean, dropping the first set in the semifinals against Rebecca and the first set in the finals against Ashlyn Kruger, who, by the way, Ashlyn Kruger, I just want to say very quickly before I get back to Bencic, 20 years old, now into the top 40. We saw her here in Toronto last summer. I thought she looked fantastic making the round of 16, beating Leila Annie Fernandez, who she beat again here, I believe, right? Yep. Before she fell to Pegula in Toronto. But an American to keep an eye on for sure, and she's got early season wins against Kalinskaya and Badosa. So Look out, the U.S., as if they don't have enough talent on the women's side. Here's another one to keep an eye on. But yeah, to get back to Bencic, it's great seeing players we've interviewed do well. It gets us listens to those previous episodes. I mean, I'm selfishly always rooting for them to do well, and it makes me remember the NBO a few years ago where we had a couple of people tweet to us like, hey, every guy that you talk to then loses in the tournament or something. And I don't think there was too much to put into that. We weren't jinxing these guys, but it gave us a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. So I think we've moved past that, because you're right. A lot of the players we've talked to in the last 12 to 16 months have gone on to do quite well. And great for Bencic. I mean, she's still only I think 27 years old. Mm-hmm. When you consider the recent crop of WTA players who've given birth and become moms, like Angie Kerber, Caroline Wozniacki. There's been so many the last few years, but they all tend to be a little bit older. And I think Bencic, what's working well for her is that she's still in her sort of just entering the late 20s phase of her career, and still has so much time. So it's great to see it, and I have no doubt that she's going to get back to that top 10, top 15 sort of level we've seen consistently for so many years.
Yeah, look, she's surging very quickly to begin the year. It had me thinking, obviously, with Madison Keys winning Australia, it had me thinking about who is the best current women's player not to win a slam. I think if I'm making a short list of 4 or 5 names, Belinda Bencic is definitely there. Other names that come to mind, I mean, Karolina Pliskova has been to a pair of Grand Slam finals. We've spoken to her a couple of times as well for this podcast. And the other name that comes to mind, of course, and you spoke to her at the National Bank Open this past summer, Ons Jabeur has had a few opportunities in Slam finals. And I think for the most part, that collection of players, they still might have their opportunities.
Yeah, and you know who I want to put up there as well? I mean, because when I look at Bencic, I mean, she's had the Olympic medals, right? The gold in singles and the silver in doubles. And I think that's so special. Like, to be honest, I would take 2 Olympic medals over a slam, or at the same level as a slam anyways. But when you look at her performance in the majors, only 2 slam quarterfinals for Bencic and 1 slam semifinal. And all 3 of those came at the U.S. Open. And then for me, I'm going to compare to Alina Svitolina, who's a few years older. She's 30 now, also come back from becoming a parent. And she's got 3 slam semifinals, 9 slam quarterfinals.
Wow.
And that's across 3 surfaces, and has made the final 8 at each of the slams more than once. So I put that slightly ahead. But certainly both are in that conversation of great players, great active players who've never won a major.
Yeah, and I remember Bianca Andreescu beating Belinda Bencic in that semifinal at the 2019 U.S. Open. Of course, went on to win the crown, defeating Serena Williams in the final. Huge women's tournament this week, WTA1000 in Doha, the Qatar Total Energies Open. And this is a tournament that Iga Swiatek has simply dominated. And it's one I think, too, when we look back from a couple of years ago at that 37-match winning streak, it kind of kicked off really in the Middle East when she started completely taking over and, dishing out the bagels and the breadsticks. I think she's so comfortable here. She's the number 2 seed. Aryna Sabalenka is the 1 seed. And it's nice to have, I think, a tournament of this importance in February.
Yeah, I mean, February, look, we're all getting sick and tired of winter over here in Canada, or, the northern United States for our listeners south of the border. It's, I'm done with it. I've had enough of it. Thank you very much. Because we're getting a proper winter this year, too. So, great for my kids. But, I'm tired of scraping the car and shoveling the snow. Tennis, good tennis in February is always welcome. And it's that, lead up to the Sunshine Double, which is such a fantastic back-to-back, much like NBO and Western Southern, the Cincinnati tournament as well. And then it's the break, right? Then you take the pause from the hard court and you get into the clay court season, which obviously has been Iga's bread and butter over these last few years. But she's an all-court player and a player who's looking to get stronger on the hard court side of things. Truthfully, there's not a whole lot of room for her to improve on the clay courts. She's the queen of clay for sure. We've seen that for season after season, not just at Roland Garros, but at the lead-up tournaments as well. But certainly, I'm sure she would love to tighten up her game on the hard courts, and partnered with Wim Fissette. I mean, let's see what they can do here. At this tournament and in March, going into the clay court season with as much hard court confidence as possible.
Yeah, and look, she's won in Doha 3 straight years. She loves the surface here. And you think to her performance at the Australian Open, I thought she played incredibly well in Melbourne, and that semifinal against Madison Keys was one of the best tournaments of the match. And Keys won by 2 points.
Best matches of the tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it will be interesting to see, can she possibly win again? Arina Sabalenka back as the number 1 seed. She might be hungry coming off that finals loss in Australia where she's dominated so much. And then Leylah Fernandez in the field. Now, she lost to Ashlyn Kruger, as you mentioned the previous week, but already really good start to this tournament. She beat Greet Minnen in the first round, then took out Emma Navarro 6-2, 6-2 to get into the round of 16. Her first top 10 win of the season. Really, really good performance from Leylah.
It's a great scoreline against a player that's been so consistent over the last year. I mean, Emma Navarro has really established herself as a legit top 10 player. You had the good fortune to speak with her at the National Bank Open, and she's just continued, to play brilliantly since then. So that's got to be a big confidence boost for Leylah Fernandez. And, we want to see more from her. She's the dominant, the lead Canadian player, by far right now, as we still wait for Bianca Andreescu to come back and kind of join her. And it's been so nice to have Felix and Denis on the men's side and Bianca and Leylah on the women's side for a few years. But time and time again, unfortunately, what do we see? That things get derailed for Bianca because of injuries. And now yet again, she purposefully decides to slow play the start of the season, as she's done previously as well, and skip Australia. But now appendicitis. I mean, how unlucky can you possibly get, right? This is not something sustained, obviously, in practice or a tennis-related injury. This is just a fluky thing. And now she's out until the clay court swing. So, we won't see her in February. We're not going to see her in March. And really, this is just, what can you do? Like, what more can you say about how this continues to happen to her, unfortunately?
Yeah, I have to say, if I were in her shoes and not practicing the mindfulness and, going on a yoga retreat, getting an extended break, I don't know, like, I would lose it. I fully understand why she stepped away from this sport for an extended period of time. And she's had so much bad fortune on the court. This happening off the court, appendicitis, just like a freak thing that really could happen to anyone at any time. And it's such a shame. The previous week we were talking about, okay, Bianca has her tournament circled for 2025, the first one, Meridia Open, end of February. And now it's not only is that tournament not happening, she's going to have to miss the Sunshine Double. And I can't imagine how frustrating it must be for her. I think she's been doing the right things in terms of putting on a brave face. She shared an update, like a fitness update on Instagram just yesterday, sort of working out and looking really fit. But I can only imagine how frustrating and difficult this must be for her to, again, have just a part-time season, which is exactly what happened in 2024, which began on the clay as well.
I mean, just how frustrating I feel for her, secondhand frustration, you know what I mean? Like, let alone her fan base, her poor fan base. I mean, we feel you, okay, BB fans, and hang in there. Yeah. Because we do still feel like when she's healthy, she's, a major pain to play against and still has so much time ahead of her. I mean, she's only 24. She turns 25 in June. So, yeah, there's lots of reason to stay optimistic. But, I mean, forget how does this keep happening to Bianca, but how does she keep going? Like, honestly, I'd be taking a permanent yoga retreat if I was her, or at least considering it. Yeah. Because how do you do it time and time again, season after season, getting derailed with injuries, fluke things like this? Our thoughts are definitely with her through this, again, challenging time. The only thing you can try to put a positive spin on is, well, at least she's got lots of practice at having these breaks and then having to come back and start again mid-season.
Yeah, that's one thing I think she said to us last year is, like, she knows how to restart because she's never really had a full season on tour, which is crazy to think about. Even her incredible 2019 was still not a full season on tour. She dealt with injuries then. So she's been dealing with it her whole career. We'll have to be patient again and wait for the clay court season when we see BB. But it was a phenomenal week for Canadian tennis. Congrats to Denis Shapovalov for the huge title in Dallas. And Mike, great chat with Vicky Mboko as well.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thanks to Vicky for joining us. It had been a while, so great to have her back on the podcast. Hey, we'll be back next week, and I've already said it, but we'll have Vasek Pospisil with us to detail all of his reasons for deciding that the Davis Cup tie in Montreal would be the last time that he'll represent his country in international competition. Stay tuned. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time.